You're driving on a highway at 2 a.m. The road ahead is perfectly straight, nearly empty, and lit only by your headlights. There's no curve, no obstacle, nothing to react to. And somewhere around mile 40 of that straight line, your eyelids get heavy. Not because you're tired, but because the road itself is putting you to sleep. You always assumed engineers built roads straight when they could, because straight is efficient, straight is cheaper, straight is faster. So why, when they had thus? Choice. Did they bend it? Traffic engineers have a name for what that straight road is doing to you. They call it highway hypnosis, a state where the brain, starved of new visual input, drifts into a kind of low-grade autopilot trance. But highway hypnosis is really just a symptom of something bigger, what we'll call the monotony trap. And once you understand the monotony trap, you'll never look at a curving road the same way again. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand why the safest road is almost never the straightest one, and why an engineer who deliberately adds curves to a highway isn't wasting your time. They're saving your life. On paper, a straight line is the obvious choice for a road. It's the shortest distance between 2 points. It uses less material, and it lets drivers see further ahead. For over a century, that logic dominated road design. Build straight, build direct, build fast. But somewhere in the mid-20th century, engineers started noticing something strange in the crash data. Some of the deadliest stretches of highway weren't the twisty mountain passes everyone feared. They were the long, flat, perfectly straight sections that looked the safest on the map. The question they had to answer was uncomfortable. What if straight roads were quietly killing people precisely because they felt so safe? Start with the simplest version of the problem. A single driver, alone, on an empty straight road. Your brain is a prediction machine. It's constantly scanning for change, because change is what might require a reaction. A curve, a hill, a passing car, a road sign. Each one is a tiny event your brain has to process, and processing keeps you alert. Take all of that away, and your brain has nothing to do. Studies on driver vigilance have shown that after roughly 20 minutes of unchanging visual input, reaction times start to slip, attention wanders, and in the worst cases, drivers experience micro-sleeps. Brief, involuntary lapses of consciousness lasting a second or two. At highway speed, 1 second is enough to cross the length of a football field with your eyes closed. Now scale it up. It's not just individual attention. It's an entire population of drivers at different times of day, in different states of fatigue, moving in a shared space for hours at a time. On a long straight highway, everyone is fighting the same monotony at once, which means fatigue-related lapses don't happen in isolation. They cluster. Add night driving, where the darkness removes even more visual reference points, and you get a feedback loop. Less stimulation leads to less alertness, which leads to slower reactions, which leads to a driver drifting slightly out of their lane, often the first sign of a fatigue-related crash, long before anyone falls fully asleep. Push this to the extreme, and you get roads like some sections of the Australian outback, or the American Midwest, where highways run dead straight for 50, 60, even 90 miles without a meaningful bend. These roads have become case studies in road safety research precisely because they combine every risk factor: long uninterrupted straightaways, high speeds, low traffic density, and, this is the part that surprises people, excellent visibility. You'd think a road you can see for miles ahead would be one of the safest in the world. Instead, some of these stretches carry disproportionately high rates of single vehicle, run-off road, crashes, the classic signature of a driver who simply stopped paying attention. So here's where your intuition says the fix should be obvious. If straight roads are dangerous because they're boring, just make drivers pay more attention. Bigger warning signs: rumble strips, coffee, stricter penalties for drowsy driving. Surely the solution is to make the driver work harder, except that's exactly backwards. You can't out-discipline a nervous system that's being systematically deprived of stimulation. No amount of willpower reliably beats 20 straight miles of nothing. So instead of trying to fix the driver, engineers started doing something that sounds almost irresponsible. They started deliberately bending roads that didn't need to bend. Not because the terrain demanded it, not because it was cheaper, but because a gentle, unnecessary curve forces a small, continuous stream of micro-corrections, tiny movements of the eyes, the hands, the attention, that keep the brain in active driving mode instead of letting it slide into autopilot. The straight road wasn't the safe option. It was the trap. The curve was the fix. This isn't just theory. It's baked into design standards. Highway engineering guidelines, like those published by A. Ashtoe in the United States, explicitly recommend introducing gentle horizontal curves on long, straight rural roads, specifically to combat driver fatigue and monotony, even when a straight alignment would be structurally and economically simpler. In parts of Germany and the Netherlands, road designers use what's sometimes called self-explaining road design, where subtle bends, changes in lane markings, or shifts in roadside scenery are used to unconsciously cue drivers to slow down or re-engage, without a single sign telling them to do so. Research into rural highway monotony has consistently found that fatigue-related single-vehicle crashes are disproportionately concentrated on long tangent, straight sections compared to roads with regular gentle curvature, even after controlling for traffic volume. And in Australia's outback, some of the most notoriously monotonous highways have had engineered curves, sometimes called monotony breakers, added not to reroute traffic, but purely to reintroduce visual variety over long, featureless stretches. So here's the mental model to take with you. Every road exists at the intersection of two competing forces. First, physical safety, sight lines, braking distance. The ability to see a hazard before it becomes a collision. Second, cognitive safety, keeping the human brain behind the wheel actually engaged with the task in front of it. A straight road optimizes almost entirely for the first and completely ignores the second. A well-designed modern highway treats them as a single problem. Enough straightness to see danger coming, enough curvature to keep you awake to see it. The old assumption, straight equals efficient equals safe, collapses into a more accurate one. Safe roads aren't the ones that ask the least of you. They're the ones that ask just enough. So picture yourself back on that highway at 2 a.m. Except this time, notice the road gently arcing left, then straightening, then curving again. Nothing dramatic. Nothing you'd even consciously register as a curve. That small, seemingly pointless bend is an engineer, decades ago, making a quiet bet on your behalf. That your attention is a resource that needs to be spent to be kept. Not preserved by demanding nothing of it. It's a strange, almost poetic idea that the straightest path isn't always the safest one, in roads, or honestly, in a lot of things people design for us. Sometimes the gentlest resistance is what keeps us present at all. If this changed the way you'll look at the next long drive you take, that's exactly the kind of hidden logic this channel exists to dig up. So subscribe if you want more of the world's invisible design decisions explained, and let me know, in the comments, what's the most monotonous road you've ever driven? And did it almost put you to sleep too?